Hello, good morning and welcome to Thoughts and Updates. I'm here just at the corner of Peel Park in Kirkintilloch with the War Memorial just there. The reason I'm here is because of the weather. Anywhere that I try to get some kind of sound quality, then Storm Dennis, or whatever it's called, is interfering and getting away. So it's not been a particularly good sound quality or getting anywhere that I can record. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the car, and you can see I think the wind is it's a bit pathetic up there in the distance because it's particularly at all. But we are talking about 60 to 80 mile an hour winds across the whole or most of Scotland. So getting somewhere where I can be heard and hear myself think at the same time is pretty difficult. So this week has been one where I think getting back into my old political debating hats and doing things with people on Twitter has been dominating this week, but we'll come to that. It's also been a week where, in terms of writing, what I've been involved in is, for Ringside Report, did a look back at Charlie Magri. For those of us who remember in the late 70s, kind of early 80s, had an amazing career, ended up being the world flyweight and lineal champion, WBC champion at the time. He was also involved in the very first EBU title fight that had dropped from 15 rounds to 12 rounds, and was very much a European flyweight champion. In terms of boxing over the weekend, there's not been much at all. I haven't seen the Caleb Plant result, which is probably the only one of great interest. But we are gearing up to next weekend, which is going to be the biggest heavyweight fight of 2020 thus far, which is Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2. Like the majority of people, I've been flip-flopping like a freshly caught fish in a trawler. I don't know who's likely to win. I still believe that generalities would suggest that if it goes long, it's Fury, but if he gets caught, it's Wilder who wins. Heavyweight boxing, one punch can make a massive difference, and that certainly almost was the case when, like a phoenix, Tyson Fury rose from the canvas in round 12 when he fought the first time round. He had also been put down in round 8, and to end up with a draw just shows how dominant the rest of the time Tyson Fury was. In fact, there is an argument that in round 12, after being put down, Tyson Fury won the round. Though the scorecards wouldn't reflect that. So it's the biggest talking point in boxing worldwide. They've cut the costs of tickets to try and get the crowd up in the arena, and that's the difference, I think, between American and British boxing. And British boxing or British sporting events will have crowds coming through the turnstiles to see it and depend less upon the revenue in television, whereas in America you tend to see a bigger revenue coming through television sales, which does cause a bit of a problem in terms of the spectacle itself. However, I'm quite sure that in Las Vegas next weekend they won't be short of a few people to turn up and cheer on one or other. Who's going to win? I'm going to go for Fury. I do hope Tyson Fury does win. I'm very impressed by the way he has conducted himself in the majority of cases since the Vladimir Klitschko fight debacle and his period of time being out of the ring, and all of the material and stuff that he was talking beforehand disappeared. And I think he's certainly become a poster boy for mental health. He's been a poster boy, full stop, for the British boxing scene. So I'd love to see him regain a world championship belt, the last of the belts that he has not won, and then a massive fight, massive in the autumn, in the United Kingdom between him and Anthony Joshua would be far too good to hope for. So it's probably never going to happen. So, boxing, football. It's been their game against Morton was postponed yesterday. Arbroath took the opportunity of ending up in 4th place, and Dick Campbell at Arbroath, having weaved his magic before at Forfar Athletic and then bizarrely parting company with the club, has gone on to take Arbroath from League One into the Championship, and now on the cusp of the the playoffs into the Premier League. Arbroath, go figure. Hearts are struggling at the bottom of the Premier League, and a number of postponements yesterday. The Rangers Livingston game that was postponed yesterday has been slated to happen again today, a 24-hour postponement, which I find interesting. Livingston attempted to make it Monday night because they believe that the weather isn't going to get better, and it has to be said that they might have a point given the way the weather is just now. However, that will happen this afternoon. The weather and sport are not good bedfellows between January, February and March. The very slim winter break for the Premier League has come and gone. Manchester City have just been banned for 2 years. They're going to the Court of Arbitration and Sport. Their ban for 2 years is out of Europe because they breached the financial fair play rules, brought in to stop huge amounts of money being invested in a club in order to buy competitions, buy leagues, buy trophies. They'll go to the Court of Arbitration and Sport in order to have it overturned. Who knows what's going to happen? Also in sport, what's been interesting this week is Craig White is promoting a book and therefore is out doing a whole load of interviews, and he was, I believe, on Off the Ball. I must go and have a listen. Completely unapologetic, totally and utterly bullish, and an interesting guy more than anything else. One wonders just exactly what his legacy will be when it's all done with. And talking of legacy, let's get to the Twitter spat. Now, there's 2 things, or 3 things, or 4 things, or however many things here. What happened was, Lorna has a tendency to go to Twitter and start a debate, and doesn't always get to the point where she can finish it. So we came across this guy Dexter, and Dexter challenged Lorna on a number of things. Lorna was going on about particularly the Scottish Conservatives attempting to lay claim for X, Y and Z, and deride the Scottish National Party government for A, B and C. So Lorna kind of got her dander up and went and defended the government in Scotland, and Dexter decides to pile in. And what Dexter decides to do is to call us all seps, which apparently is, in his mind, short for separatists. Actually, Dexter, seps was invented by a guy called Douglas Adams, and it means someone else's problem. So what you've done is you've kind of created something, and if I was being childish, as people who like to have little names for people, I would probably call you an analyst of the SNP government, which means that I would be able to call you anal. However, I'm not going to do that because it is childish, and being called a sep, I'm not a separatist. I happen to be probably more of a federalist. But Dexter believes that nationalism is the same creed no matter where. And what happens is that when there is a period of time of discord or distrust, that nationalism rises, and therefore what it will do is it will denigrate and it will attack people, and it will eventually lead to the most appalling things happening. And his correlation here, and I want you to sit and listen and think about this, because it's seriously a view that Dexter holds. That means that anywhere where nationalism rises, that it's exactly the same. And when I challenged him on this, he told me that Gandhi and Hitler were the same. Now, that was bad enough, because I can't I can't argue with that level of stupid. I just can't. It makes no difference how I approach that. I cannot get to somebody because his belief is that you start with the simple and you move from there. So they both get national in their name, or nationalism is what they claim as a creed, so therefore they must be the same. And he didn't go back to me when I pointed out that therefore, that's the same as saying that Glasgow Rangers and Glasgow Rangers when it was Glasgow Rangers and Glasgow Celtic were exactly the same because they had Glasgow in their title. Then he went on about how SEPs, or those of us who believe in independence, happen to hate the English. We're bigots. We detest the English. So much so that when Tunnocks changed their packaging and put the Union flag on rather than the saltire, that we boycotted them. And that boycott, by the way, is a slippery slope. Because the Nazis started with boycotting Jewish goods, and eventually that led to the gas chambers. So if you don't eat Tunnocks tea cakes and you boycott them, you're in favour of sending the English to the gas chambers. Now, I know that state-sponsored anything can be quite inefficient. And what that means is that if we've started, boycotting the Tunnocks tea cakes and we've been in power for 13 years and we haven't quite got to Kristallnacht yet, we must be really bad at this politics thing, because we need to up our game and get the English in an orderly clue and send them off to the equivalent of Auschwitz. Now, what I said to him was as well, I said, I don't know whether you've been to Yad Vashem, I don't know whether you've been to Auschwitz, but if you had been, you would never take the Holocaust and what happened to people during that time and use it in a political debate in the 21st century for mainstream politics ever. And I flippantly said that I could just imagine, I would suggest you go and you see these places, but I would just think you would be standing in the middle of Auschwitz and think to yourself, my God, this looks a bit like Peebles. How does that make a political point? And he just bombards you with stuff because he can't answer it. He just tells you that that's the truth. I'm never wrong. Yes, you are, Dexter. And the latest one, he's gone off on one because Alan Smith, the MEP, has been recorded by a woman who went to ask him a question, and he said, look, I'm quite happy, I'm paraphrasing him, and it's online and people can go and look, and I don't think that what he did was particularly clever, but I don't know whether he knew he was being filmed. But what's happened is the full outrage of Dexter and his ilk, because there's people who pile on the top of him. It's not just Dexter, there's another one, there's about 10 of them that once they get their teeth into something, they're away on it. That because Alan Smith admitted that the Scottish National Party have a database, or they've suggested a watch list of people who have been derogatory towards the Scottish National Party government and the SNP online, that they can identify who these people are, and therefore he wasn't going to stand and talk to her for any great length of time because he knows that it's a pointless exercise. Now, every political party depends upon volunteers to go out and chap doors. We know what doors to chap on, purely and simply because, and this is every political party, not the SNP, not the Tories, not the Liberal Democrats, not the Scottish Socialist Party, we all political parties have access to a publicly available document called the electoral roll. When we send somebody out and they chap the door and they go, who are you voting for? Can I have a wee chat with you? There is a card or there is something that records what happens, and that goes into a database. Of course it does. Now, if you can ally that to somebody's activity on Twitter, on Facebook, of course they're going to do that. Because again, that's publicly available information. So you put the two together, and I've got some guy on Twitter going on about how's a breach of GDPR, have they asked permission, blah, 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 because they don't know. And that's the same guy who believes that if you start to boycott Tunnocks tea cakes, you are in favour of gassing the English. So, what a week. Indeed, what a week. And it ends, here on a Sunday with a storm, like it was last weekend, ending with a storm too. But with that all in mind, I'm looking forward to seeing what Dexter brings me for the week ahead. And until then, bye for now.